The Grand Hall was the largest room in the known universe. It sat at the center of a space station the size of a small moon. Every year, leaders from 847 different species came here to talk, argue, and decide the fate of trillions of lives. Admiral Tay had seen this hall many times before. She was young for her rank, only 30 cycles old, but she had earned her place through skill and courage. Her people, the Valari, were tall and thin, with silver skin that changed color with their emotions. Right now, her skin had a soft blue tint. She was calm but curious. She stood near the back of the hall with her old mentor, Commander Jira. Jira was from the Mechari species. He was short and wide, with 4 arms and eyes that sat on the sides of his head like a fish. He had served in the assembly for over 100 years. He knew every secret this place held. In the center of the hall stood the Council of 12. These were the oldest and most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. Each one had a special chair, carved from materials found only on their home worlds. The chairs formed a circle, and in that circle, the future of all life was decided. But one chair was different from the others. It was made of simple wood and metal. It was smaller than the rest. And it was empty. A thin beam of light shone down on it from the ceiling above, as if the station itself wanted everyone to notice. No one ever sat in that chair. No one even walked too close to it. Tay had always wondered about it. Today, she finally asked. "Commander Jira," she said quietly, "whose chair is that?" Jira turned his wide head to look at her. His skin, which was normally green, turned a darker shade. This meant he was remembering something sad. "That is Earth's chair," he said. "The chair of the humans." Tay had heard stories about humans. Every child in the galaxy had. But she had never seen one. No one alive had. "They are all gone, are they not?" she asked. "Yes," Jira said. "For 200 years now." Tay looked at the empty chair again. The wood was old, but still polished. Someone took care of it, even after all this time. "Why does no one sit there?" she asked. Surely another species could take their place on the council. Jira made a sound that was something like a laugh, but sadder. Sit in the human chair? No one would dare. Not after what they did. He led her to a quiet corner of the hall, away from the noise of the assembly. There, he told her the story. 200 years ago, a great darkness came to the galaxy. It was called the Hollow Swarm. No one knew where it came from. Some said it crawled out of the space between galaxies. Others said it had always been there, sleeping, waiting. The swarm did not want land or resources. It wanted to consume. It ate stars. It ate planets. It ate entire civilizations. In just 10 years, 17 star systems went dark. Billions of lives gone. The galaxy tried to fight back. Fleets were sent. Weapons were built. Nothing worked. The swarm just kept growing. Then the humans came forward. They were a young species, barely 1,000 years in space. They were small and soft. They lived short lives. Many of the older races did not take them seriously. But the humans had something no other species had. They had a plan so mad, so desperate, that no one else would have even considered it. They offered to use their own sun as a weapon. Their scientists had discovered that if they pushed enough energy into a star, they could make it explode in a very specific way. A focus blast that would burn across light years. It could destroy the heart of the swarm, the central hive that controlled all the others. But there was a cost. The explosion would destroy Earth. It would destroy every human colony in the system. It would kill every single human being. The assembly begged them to find another way. The humans said there was no time. The swarm was coming for the core worlds. If they waited even 1 month, it would be too late. On the last day, A human captain named Bin led a fleet of ships directly into the swarm. Behind him, the human sun began to change. It grew brighter, then brighter still. Captain Bin sent one final message to the galaxy. His voice was calm. "We do not survive because we are the strongest," he said. "We survive because we refuse to stop." Then the sun exploded. The light reached across the stars. The swarm burned. The hive mind screamed and died. And with it, so did humanity. When the light faded, the galaxy was saved. But Earth was gone. The human colonies were ash. Not a single human remained. The assembly wept. They built statues. They wrote songs. And they kept the human chair, promising that no one would ever sit in it again. It would stay empty forever, a reminder of what one small species did to save everyone else. Jira finished his story. Tay did not speak for a long time. Her skin had turned a deep purple, the color of grief. "That is why no one sits there," Jira said. "It is not just respect. It is also fear. Fear that if anyone claimed that seat, they would have to live up to what humans were. And no one believes they can." Tay was about to respond when a sharp alarm rang through the hall. Everyone stopped talking. Every eye turned to the main screen. A technician spoke, his voice shaking. "We have detected an anomaly at the edge of known space. A single ship. It is broadcasting a signal." "What kind of signal?" someone asked. The technician checked his instruments twice, as if he could not believe what he was seeing. "It is old," he said. "Very old. And it is in a human language." The hall went completely silent. In the center of the room, the light above the empty chair seemed to glow just a little bit brighter. Admiral Tay stood on the bridge of her ship, the Silver Dawn, and watched the stars pass by. Behind her, a fleet of 20 vessels followed in tight formation. They were moving faster than any fleet had moved in years. The signal had changed everything. For 2 centuries, the galaxy believed all humans were dead. Now, a single ship floated at the edge of known space, sending a message in a language no one had spoken in 200 years. The assembly had debated for only an hour before making a decision. Find that ship. Find out who or what was inside. Tay had volunteered to lead the mission. She told herself it was duty. But in her heart, she knew it was something more. She had grown up hearing stories of humans. She had dreamed of them as a child. Now, she might be the one to find the last piece of their history. The journey took 3 weeks. When they finally reached the coordinates, they found the ship drifting near a dead star. It was small and old, covered in marks from space dust and time. The metal was dark and cracked in places. Whatever had happened to this vessel, it had been alone for a very long time. Tay led a boarding team personally. They cut through the outer door and stepped inside. The air was stale but breathable. The lights were dim. Emergency power only. They walked through narrow hallways filled with dust and silence. Then they found the sleep chamber. Inside a glass pod, covered in frost, lay a woman. She was small by Valari standards. Soft skin, dark hair, closed eyes. The machines around her still blinked with faint light, keeping her alive in frozen sleep. A human, a real, living human. Tay's crew stood in shock. No one moved. No one spoke. They were looking at something that should not exist. A ghost made real. Tay ordered them to bring the pod back to the ship. The doctors worked carefully to wake her. It took 3 days. On the 3rd day, the woman opened her eyes. Her name was Yuna. She looked around the medical bay with confusion and fear. Strange faces. Strange machines. Strange languages. Everything she knew was gone. Tay was the first to speak to her. The translation device took a moment to adjust to the old human language, but soon they can understand each other. "You are safe," Tay said gently. "My name is Tay. I am an admiral of the Valari fleet. You have been asleep for a very long time." Yuna stared at her. Her eyes were wet. "How long?" she whispered. Tay hesitated. She knew the truth would hurt, but the woman deserved to know. 200 years, she said. Yuna did not cry. She did not scream. She simply closed her eyes and took a long, shaking breath. When she opened them again, something inside her had changed. She looked older, emptier. Over the next few days, Yuna told them her story. When the humans decided to destroy the swarm, not everyone stayed behind. A group of scientists and leaders created a secret plan. They called it the Exodus Fleet, 200 ships filled with people, knowledge, and seeds. Enough to start again somewhere far away. The fleet left before the sun exploded. They traveled in secret, jumping from star to star, looking for a new home. But space is cruel. Ships broke down. Sickness spread. Radiation from a dying star killed half the fleet in one terrible year. Pirates found them once. A black hole pulled 3 ships into its darkness. One by one, the ships were lost. Yuna's vessel was the last. The others in her crew died of old age while she slept. The ship's computer kept her frozen, following its final orders. Wait, survive, hope someone finds you. Now, 200 years later, someone had. "I am the only one left," Yuna said. Her voice was flat. "I am the last human." Tay did not know what to say. What words could comfort the last of an entire species? They brought Yuna back to the assembly. The news spread across the galaxy like fire. A human had survived. The legends were not completely gone. The leaders of 1,000 worlds came to see her. Some wanted to honor her. They offered her palaces and riches. They wanted to build statues of her and write her name in the stars. Others were afraid. Humans were myths now, almost like gods. A living human walking among them felt wrong. It was like seeing the dead rise from their graves. Yuna wanted none of it. She did not feel like a hero. She did not feel like a legend. She felt like a failure. Her ancestors had fled while others burned. They had run from the fight and called it survival. Every night, she dreamed of the sun exploding. She saw the faces of the humans who stayed, the ones who gave their lives. And she felt shame. Tay visited her often. She found Yuna sitting alone in her room most days, staring at nothing. "You are the last of a great people," Tay said one evening. "The galaxy celebrates you." Yuna shook her head. "They celebrate people who died for them. I am not one of those people. I am the daughter of those who ran." "Running is not always cowardice," Tay said. "Sometimes, running is the only way to keep hope alive." Yuna did not answer. She did not believe it. The days passed. Yuna became a guest of the assembly, but she felt more like a prisoner. Everyone watched her. Everyone whispered about her. She was a symbol, not a person. Then, one morning, a young officer rushed into the assembly hall with terrible news. "We have detected something at the edge of the outer systems," he said. "It matches the old records. The energy signature is the same." The room went cold. "The same as what?" a delegate asked. The officer's face was pale. "The same as the hollow swarm. It is back. And it is coming this way." Yuna stood in the crowd and felt the fear spread through the room like a disease. The nightmare her ancestors had died to end was not truly dead. It had only been sleeping, and now it was awake. The fear came first. Then came the silence. Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched the news and felt their hope drain away. The hollow swarm had returned. The darkness that ate stars was no longer a story to scare children. It was real, and it was hungry again. They called this new threat the Hollow Remnant. Scientists believed that pieces of the original swarm had survived the Great Explosion 200 years ago. These fragments had drifted into the empty spaces between galaxies, slowly growing, slowly rebuilding. Now they had become strong enough to return. The first attacks were small. Scout ships vanished. Remote outposts went silent. But then a colony of 3 million disappeared in a single night. No warning, no survivors, just empty buildings and cold machines. The Council of 12 met in emergency session. Admiral Tay stood in the back of the hall and watched the leaders argue. The Valari wanted to fight. "We must strike now, before they grow stronger," their representative said. The Mechari wanted to retreat. "We cannot win a direct battle. We must protect our core worlds and wait." The Sultan offered a darker solution. "Perhaps we can offer tribute. Give them systems at the edge. Buy time." Tay felt sick as she listened. These were the greatest minds in the galaxy, and they were already talking about surrender. 200 years of peace had made them soft. They had forgotten how to be brave. While the council debated, Una spent her days in the Human Archive. This was a great museum built to honor her species. It held everything that remained of human history: art, music, books, and military records. Una walked through the hall slowly, reading everything she could find. She read about human wars, human mistakes, human victories. She read about ordinary people who did extraordinary things when the moment demanded it. She found the final records of Captain Bin, the man who led the last fleet into the swarm. His words were simple. "We do not survive because we are the strongest," he had said. "We survive because we refuse to stop." Una read that line many times. She did not understand it. She had stopped. She was still alive. Did that mean she was weak? One night, Tay found her sitting on the floor of the archive, surrounded by old data chips and documents. "I have been looking for you," Tay said. "The council meetings are getting worse. No one can agree on anything." Una looked up. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep. "I have been reading," she said, "about my people. About what they did." Tay sat down beside her. "What have you found?" Una held up a small device. "This is a partial schematic. My ancestors left it hidden in their final transmissions. It took days to decode. What is it?" "A weapon," Una said. "A better version of what they used to destroy the swarm the first time. Smaller, more focused. It could kill the remnant without destroying an entire star system." Tay's eyes widened. This could change everything. Why did no one find this before? "Because it is not complete," Una said. "The weapon needs something called a genetic key. The device will only work if a human builds it and activates it. My ancestors made sure of that. Why would they do that?" Una was quiet for a moment. "I think they knew. They knew that someday the swarm might return. And they wanted to make sure that if it did, a human would be the one to finish it. They wanted to give their children a purpose." Tay understood. The humans who fled did not run out of cowardice. They ran because they were carrying hope. They were supposed to come back. "Then you must build it," Tay said. "You are the only one who can." Una shook her head. "I am not a soldier. I am a botanist. I grew food on the ship. I kept plants alive. I do not know how to fight a war." "You do not need to fight," Tay said. "You just need to build. Let others do the fighting. And if I fail? If I build it wrong? If the weapon does not work?" Tay put a hand on her shoulder. "Then we will be no worse than we are now. But if you succeed, you will save billions of lives. You will finish what your ancestors started." Una looked at the schematic in her hands. The responsibility felt too heavy. The expectations felt too high. She was just one woman, the last of a dead species. How could she carry the hopes of an entire galaxy? Before she could answer, an alarm rang through the station. Tay pressed her communicator. What is happening? The voice on the other end was filled with panic. The remnant has attacked the Valari homeworld. Our defenses are falling. We need reinforcements immediately. Tay's silver skin turned white. Her homeworld. Her family. She ran to the nearest transport. Yuna followed. The battle was over before they arrived. The Valari fleet had fought bravely, but the remnant was too strong. Half the planet was dark. Millions were dead. Tay found her family's home in ruins. Her parents, her brother, all gone. She stood in the ashes and did not cry. Her skin did not change color. She had gone beyond grief into something harder and colder. When she finally spoke, her voice was like ice. I will not let this happen again, she said. I will not let them take anyone else. She turned to Yuna. Build the weapon, she said. I do not care how long it takes. I do not care what you need. Build it, and I will make sure you have the chance to use it. Yuna looked at the destruction around them. She thought of her ancestors, who ran so that someone could come back. She thought of Captain Bin, who refused to stop. Maybe she finally understood. I will try, she said quietly. It was not a promise. It was not confidence, but it was a start. Admiral Tay was not the same person she had been before. The attack on her homeworld had taken everything from her. Her family, her peace, her ability to wait and hope for others to act. Now she moved through the galaxy with a cold fire burning inside her. 3 months had passed since the attack. In that time, the remnant had struck 7 more systems. The assembly continued to debate. The Council of 12 continued to argue. And billions more continued to die. Yuna worked day and night on the weapon. She called it Project Dawn, the same name her ancestors had used. She had teams of scientists from 12 different species helping her. But the work was slow. The technology was 200 years old and written in a language only she could read. Tay protected her. She placed guards around the laboratory. She made sure Yuna had everything she needed. But she could see that it was not enough. The galaxy was losing hope. One morning, Tay walked into the Grand Hall alone. The council was in session. The leaders of the 12 great powers sat in their chairs, arguing about which systems to abandon next. They spoke of acceptable losses. They spoke of strategic retreats. They did not speak of victory. Tay listened for a long time. Then she could not listen anymore. She walked to the center of the hall. The delegates stopped talking. Everyone watched as the young admiral passed the guards and stepped into the circle of 12. Then she did something that had not been done in 200 years. She sat in Earth's chair. The hall erupted. Guards rushed toward her with weapons raised. Delegates shouted curses in a dozen languages. The eldest Makari called it the greatest insult in galactic history. But Tay did not move. She sat in the old wooden chair and looked at them all with cold eyes. "Arrest her!" Someone screamed. "Wait," Commander Jira called out. His old voice cut through the noise. "Let her speak." The guards stopped. The shouting faded. Everyone looked at the young Valari woman sitting where no one had dared sit for 2 centuries. Tay stood slowly. Her silver skin was dark red, the color of defiance. "This chair does not belong to the dead," she said. Her voice was calm but strong. "It belongs to what they stood for. Courage, sacrifice, the will to fight when all hope seems lost." She pointed at the council. "You sit in your chairs and talk about retreat. You talk about acceptable losses. You have forgotten what humans taught us." She took a step forward. "There is one human left. One woman who carries the blood of those who saved us all. She is building a weapon that can end this war. And instead of helping her, you argue about which worlds to surrender. The hall was silent now. Even the guards had lowered their weapons. If no one else will remind you what courage looks like, Tay said, then I will sit here and do it myself. Because someone must. Before anyone could respond, the doors at the back of the hall opened. Yuna walked in. She moved slowly, her footsteps echoing in the silence. Every eye in the room followed her as she approached the circle. Tay stepped aside. Yuna stopped in front of the chair. Earth's chair. Her people's chair. For a long moment, she just stared at it. The old wood. The worn metal. 200 years of history pressing down on this simple seat. She thought of her ancestors. The ones who burned in the explosion. The ones who ran into the darkness of space. The ones who died one by one on failing ships while she slept. They had all been waiting for this moment. They just did not know it. Yuna sat down. The room held its breath. When she spoke, her voice was quiet. But in the silence, everyone could hear her clearly. My ancestors left Earth 200 years ago. Some people say they ran because they were afraid. Maybe that is true. But I think they ran because they knew something important. She looked around the room at all the different faces, all the different species. They knew that hope cannot die if someone carries it forward. They ran so that one day, someone could come back. They ran so that humanity would have a second chance. She stood again, but she did not leave the circle. I am not a soldier. I am not a hero. I am a botanist who grew food on a dying ship. But I am also the last human. And I will build this weapon. I will finish what my people started. She paused. But I will not do it alone. She looked at Tay, then at the council. If we win this war, it cannot be humanity's victory. It must belong to everyone. I need volunteers from every species, scientists, engineers, soldiers. I need the galaxy to fight together. The silence stretched. Then, Commander Jira stood from his seat. He walked to the center of the hall and bowed his old head. The Mockery will send our best engineers, he said. You will not fight alone. One by one, other delegates stood. The Valari offered their fleet. The Sultan offered their resources. Species that had argued for months now came together around one small human woman. By the end of the day, the United Fleet was formed. It was the largest alliance in galactic history. Ships from 1,200 worlds would fly under one banner. Admiral Tay would lead the military. Yuna would lead Project Dawn. That night, Tay found Yuna standing on an observation deck, looking out at the stars. You did it, Tay said. You united them. Yuna shook her head. We did it. I could not have done this without you. You sat in that chair when no one else would. Tay smiled, just a little. Someone had to remind them what courage looks like. They stood together in silence, watching the distant lights of 1,000 civilizations. Do you think we can win? Yuna asked. Tay was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke. I think your ancestors believed you could. They carried that hope across 200 years and gave it to you. Now it is your turn to carry it forward. Yuna nodded slowly. For the first time since she woke from the cold sleep, she felt something other than grief. She felt purpose. The void threshold was the edge of everything. Beyond this point, space itself became strange. Stars did not shine here. Light moved slowly, as if the darkness was thick enough to hold it back. This was where the hollow remnant lived, in the cold gap between galaxies. The United Fleet arrived in perfect formation. 3,000 ships from 1,200 worlds. It was the largest military force the galaxy had ever assembled. At the front flew Admiral Tay's flagship, the Silver Dawn. Beside it flew a smaller vessel carrying Project Dawn and its creator. Una stood on the bridge of her ship and watched the darkness ahead. Somewhere in that void was the heart of the remnant, the central hive that controlled all the smaller pieces. Destroy that, and the entire swarm would die. Just like before. Just like 200 years ago. The only difference was that this time, the weapon was smaller, more focused. And this time, a human would be there to aim it. Admiral Tay's voice came through the speakers. All ships, this is Admiral Tay. The remnant knows we are here. They will try to stop us. Our mission is simple. Hold the line long enough for Project Dawn to reach the core. No matter what happens, no matter the cost. The fleet responded with signals of understanding. 3,000 crews. Millions of soldiers. All of them knew this might be a one-way trip. The remnant came from the darkness like a wave. They were not like normal ships. They were living things, creatures of shadow and hunger. They moved without engines, flew without wings. Where they touched metal, they consumed it. Where they touched flesh, they devoured it. The battle began. Beams of light cut across the void. Ships exploded into fire and dust. The remnant screamed in frequencies that made minds ache. But the united fleet held. Tay commanded from the center of the chaos. Her voice was calm and steady. She moved ships like pieces on a board, filling gaps, covering retreats, pushing forward when the enemy weakened. Una's ship moved through the battle like a needle through cloth. Fighter craft from 12 species flew beside her, protecting her path. Many of them died, but they did not stop. The core was visible now, a massive shape in the darkness. It pulsed with cold light, sending commands to every piece of the remnant. It was ancient and terrible and aware. It knew what was coming. The remnant focused its attack on Una's ship. Wave after wave of shadow creatures threw themselves at the small vessel. The fighter escort fought bravely, but they were running out of time. I am taking too much damage, Una reported. I do not know if I can reach the core. Tay looked at the tactical display. The remnant was everywhere. The united fleet was being pushed back. If Una failed now, everything would be lost. She made her decision in an instant. Silver Dawn to all ships, she said. I am changing course. Protect Una. I will clear her path. Her crew looked at her with wide eyes. They understood what she meant. The flagship turned and flew directly toward the thickest concentration of remnant forces. Its weapons fired continuously, cutting a path through the darkness. The remnant turned to face this new threat, giving Una's ship room to move. Admiral, what are you doing? Una's voice came through the speakers. Tay smiled. My people have a saying. A life spent for others is never wasted. I finally understand what it means. She looked at the darkness ahead. Finish this, Una, for your people and mine. The Silver Dawn crashed into the wall of remnant creatures, weapons blazing until the very end. Then there was a flash of light, and the flagship was gone. Una felt tears on her face. But she did not stop. Her ship reached the core. The giant structure loomed above her, pulsing with dark energy. She activated Project Dawn. The weapon hummed to life. It was smaller than the device her ancestors used, but it worked on the same principle. A focused burst of solar energy, channeled through a crystal matrix, keyed to her genetic code. She placed her hand on the activation panel. The machine asked for confirmation. This was it. The moment 200 years in the making. She thought of her ancestors. The ones who burned so that the galaxy could live. The ones who fled so that hope could survive. She thought of Captain Bin and his last words. She thought of Admiral Tay, who gave her life to create this moment. She thought of all the humans who had ever lived, loved, and died. "We are not the strongest," she whispered. "We are not the fastest. But we are here. And we will always come back." She pressed the panel. The weapon fired. Light exploded from the core of her ship. It was the light of a star, compressed and focused into a single beam. It burned through the remnant hive like fire through paper. The darkness screamed. The shadow creatures turned to ash. And then it was over. When the light faded, the core was gone. The remnant was gone. The galaxy was silent. Yuna expected to be dead. She had accepted it. But as the seconds passed, she realized she was still breathing. She looked around. Her ship was damaged but intact, and wrapped around it like a protective shell were the remains of another vessel. The Silver Dawn, Tei's ship. In her final moment, Tei had positioned her flagship to shield Yuna from the blast. Even in death, she had refused to let the last human die alone. The United Fleet found Yuna drifting near the empty space where the core had been. They pulled her ship to safety. Doctors checked her injuries. Admirals asked her questions. But Yuna could not speak. Not for a long time. 50 years passed. The galaxy rebuilt. The remnant was truly gone this time. Peace spread from system to system. And on a terraformed world named New Sol, a new generation of humans took its first steps. Scientists had found genetic samples in Yuna's ship. Carefully preserved cells from hundreds of individuals. They used these to begin cloning, carefully and ethically, with Yuna's guidance. The first new humans were born 20 years after the war. Now there were thousands. Yuna sat on a bench in a field of wheat. She was old now, her hair gray, her hands thin. But she was happy. Children ran through the fields, laughing. They had dark hair and soft skin. They spoke Korean and English, and the trade languages of the galaxy. They were human, but they were also something new. Beside Yuna stood a statue of Admiral Tei. The silver skin was captured perfectly in metal. Below it were the words. She sat in a chair when no one else would. A young woman walked up and sat beside Yuna. Her name was Jiwon. Yuna had found her as an orphan in the early days of the rebuilding and raised her as a daughter. "The assembly meeting went well," Jiwon said. "They have agreed to the new trade agreement." Yuna smiled. "I heard." Ambassador Jiwon. "It still sounds strange to me." "It sounds strange to me too," Jiwon laughed. "But someone has to sit in that chair." Yuna looked at the sky. Somewhere up there, in the great station at the center of the galaxy, Earth's chair was occupied again. A human sat among the 12. Not as a ghost or a legend, but as a living representative of a living people. "Your grandmother would be proud," Yuna said. Jiwon did not answer. She just held the old woman's hand. They sat together in silence, watching the children play under an alien sun. The wheat swayed in the wind. Life continued, as it always did. Somewhere, in the empty spaces between stars, the light of the second sunrise still traveled outward. It carried a message to anyone who might find it. We were here. We are gone. But we came back. And we always will.